My name is Engineer Clement Oke, the acting chairman for the Presidential Task Force on Power.
And what is the Presidential Task Force on Power?
The Presidential Task Force on Power is a body set up, by the government, essentially to look at first of all, the aspect of reforming the power industry, and so he developed the roadmap, for moving the business, from government vertical setup into a private sector mode. And the process of that, it needed a body, to monitor, to facilitate progress in it, and to catalyze issues to a high level. And that's essentially what the Presidential Task Force on Power has been doing.
And what's the gap in terms of power that you're addressing? It's quite significant, isn't it?
That is correct. Essentially, we picked at about 4,500 megawatts. That's in 2012.
Yeah.
But the estimated demand, for the country is of the order of 16,000 megawatts.
So it's four times as much as is currently.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And essentially, much of the work that is being done now is foundational.
Yeah.
To be able to create an environment, such that investors will be able to come into the country, invest their money with the assurance that they'll be able to recoup whatever money that they're putting in the industry.
You were talking earlier, there's a particular barrier, isn't there, as you get towards the 4,000, 4,500 megawatt scale of generation?
Essentially, we observe that once we're about the 4,500 megawatt scale, we have what is called high system frequency, which means the power that is being produced is not getting to the people. And so our investigation shows that the problems can be divided essentially into two sections. There's the interface issues, that is the handshake between the distribution and transmission. And also there's also the reluctance of the distribution companies, to also take all the power that is available because of the risk of non-payment, that they've seen in the business. And so, we've been working with them, both the transmission company to the bottleneck, as well as the distribution company to take more and reinforce their system. However, for this to happen, they need to have, let me say, a cost-reflective stroke affordable tariff. And I'm pleased to report that negotiation is on between the regulator, the distribution companies, who are also supposed to work with the customers to be able to come up with this tariff so that the business can be self-sustaining.
And the tariff setting is key, isn't it? Because in a sense it sets the ability to make a profit, make investment, and do all those other things.
That is correct. I know there's a lot of people who are very uncomfortable about paying more. And the government and the regulator, they are all aware of this. And so a process is being designed such that the increase, may not be immediate, but ultimately one would expect a situation whereby the tariff in the business will sustain the business with due consideration, to the ability to pay, But all of us need to recognize that if we want something good, we really must be ready to pay for it. And power effort is also made to increase power within the business. I must say that both for the issue of vandalism that we have experienced within the past 12 months, we should really have exceeded the 4,500 megawatt level. And actually, when we launched the annual report of the Presidential Task Force, we indicated that by mid-year, we should be able to do about 5,000 megawatt. And really, the only thing limiting us right now is the issue of vandalism. Work is going on, in fact, as of today. That is when the transport line was repaired and is coming back into service. So if we can keep it on, then definitely the target that was set, we should be able to come back to it. One of the plants that we expected to come on stream was the Alaoji power plant is running. Calabar also is running right now. So if we're able to sort out the issue of vandalism, then the target that was set earlier on, it should be met.
let's come on to the structural reforms. You've set up a system with distribution companies, transmission companies and generating companies. How does that work?
Well, effectively, we have what is called, let me say that prior to now, we're actually running a business without contract because it's more or less a vertical entity. But right now, the market is being structured in a contractual basis so that they have a contract, between the distribution company and Engr. You have the contract between Engr and the generation companies effectively, so that we have a regulator in place to make sure that the dynamics of the market does not move against any component of the business effectively. And so once the contractual regime is on, and actually the transitional electricity market was launched on the 1st of February, where that start is supposed to have happened. However, there are some preconditions that are yet to be met, and a lot of work is being done, to make sure that the securitization, which was not in the past, which was not in place, is coming into place. And I must say that once the business is running this time round, we would expect that the issue of securitization over time should become a history, because any business that runs, if you have a customer that is paying, you really wouldn't ask him, to go ahead and start putting money somewhere else. Rather, let us use that money to be able to grow the business. And that is what we expect ultimately to happen. However, they were building confidence right now within the business among the various parties. And once that is done, definitely we would expect that we would have a self-sustaining business.
And recently there's been an advert for microgrids. Where do microgrids fit into this picture?
Essentially, much of what I've been talking up to now is really within the grid. Now, there are remote locations which is far from the grid. And there's a policy that by 2020, 75% of the people in this country should be able to have power. The reality is that not all of them will get it from the grid within the next 4 years. And so in order to make sure that we have people from outside, not within the grid, beginning to enjoy power, then the microgrid has been set up. And in fact, yesterday, the renewable energy policy for the country was approved, which means there's a basis, for people to be able to, let me say, structure is not being put in place for investors to look at and see where they can key into the business. The good thing also is that Nigeria is blessed with a lot of sunshine, especially in the northern part of the country. And also they are far. That place is far from where we are producing gas. And so those mini grids, there's a high probability that a lot of them, will work on solar, some possibly on let me say wind, and where there is some hydro, small hydro, some of those facilities would also be built outside the network. And as this grid grows, ultimately they can now be integrated into the grid as the system grows.
And the final question, when will the average Nigerian be able to say that they can see some improvement in the system?
Let me say, when we hit the 4,500 megawatt, actually a lot of people call us to ask us, oh, my fridge is working continuously.
This was in 2012.
This was in 2012. Yeah. So in my opinion, by the time we come, first of all, to the 5,000 level, there must be a difference in the life of Nigerians. But ultimately, let me say, within, I did mention earlier on, there is a target for 75% attainment, of Nigerians getting power by 2020. And I will say that between now and 2020, it is a continuous improvement because the foundation for that development has been made. And I will say that, from the 5,000 level and beyond, then there must be definite improvement in terms of the number of hours that people see light, and secondly, the interruption in terms of, let me say, system instability should reduce. I probably use this opportunity to be able to say that in the past, the system was run without what is called spinning reserve. And so any disruption, everything goes off. Now we have steam spinning reserve in place. And as a result of that, the amount of system collapses that we've had, especially in 2014, substantially reduced. We had less than 10, whereas in the past we had in excess of 20 system collapses. And as the system grows, the tendency for the whole system to collapse will reduce, and that will be for the benefit of the citizens. Let me also say that there is a major transmission line which is under construction, which is called the North-South Loop, and that's in the eastern part. When that is ready, then stranded power in the east should begin to come into the network. And that, in my opinion, towards the end of, between now and the end of the year, we should be able to have substantially more power than what we are doing now. But the major challenges, I must say, is the vandalism. And once that is, which is also being addressed, once the fruit, the benefit of that vandalism it begins to show, then there will be a, the sharp of, increase in the power supply within the country.